the smoke-filled room, and depending on what day you're watching this, it might be 70 degrees, it might be 20 degrees, because it's Illinois, and that's what our weather does. So who knows what the weather's like today, but you're with us right now in the smoke-filled room. And with this being released on the first day of Women's History Month, we decided it'd be a cool idea to have all women guests for this episode. I'm really excited about it because not only do we have women guests, we have really influential and talented women as our guests. So we've got a awesome episode ahead. I'm going to introduce our guests by alphabetical order just to make sure I keep it fair. So we'll start with you, Abby. And I got to tell our audience, it's not that we have an obsession with people with the name Abby. We have had a lot of Abby guests over the months. We have my wife, Abby, who's been on. We have Abby Oliver, a dynamo Politico out of DuPage, who's been a lot but couldn't join us this week. And now we have Abby Walsh, who's the past president of the Lincoln Series. She's been the director of fundraising for the Newberg group until today, Thursday, when we're recording this. She's going to be moving over to the Illinois Credit Union League in a new role. So, Abby, we're really glad to have you with us this week.
Thank you.
I remember going down to Springfield a number of times dealing with legislative issues. And every time it was in the Senate, someone would say, I don't know, go talk to Abby. Everything went through Abby Walsh. So I'm glad to have you here. I think you got a lot of info to share with our viewers. So it's going to be great.
Awesome.
Next, we have Cindy Katsenes, who's on the phone at the moment. She'll be on video in a little bit, but she's crazy hardworking. So, of course, she'd be at work and driving to the nearest computer so she could join us via video. So Cindy's with us by voice for now. She's the Township Republican Committeeperson, also an Orland Park trustee. Cindy, I'm glad to have you.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much, Corbin.
All right, and then next we have Lana Soldat. I got it right? Lana, right? I did that right? No, Lana, you said.
Lana.
I knew I'd screw it up. I'm so sorry. Lana Soldat is with us. She's the president of the Illinois Federation of Republican Women, and it's great to have you with us today, Lana. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And I hope I don't screw up your name any more times on this episode. I asked her before we recorded how to say it right, and I still screwed it up. Rhonda Belford, I could never screw up your name, Rhonda. You've been with us a couple times on SFRs in the past. We're so glad to have you. You're the president of the Republican County Chairmen's Association. You're also the chairman of the Hardin County Republicans. Rhonda, thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I'm the 12th Congressional District State Central Committee woman. So anyway,
I just sort of stopped after 2 because if I said every single one of your titles, we just have to close the episode once.
You just got to shut it down somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's good.
And we have Sharon Langlotz-Johnson. She's the legislative aide and district director for a member of the House of Representatives. She also was the township supervisor in Palatine and a member of the board of trustees prior to that. And she's Dustin's second dog mommy, my and Abby's dog. So you hold a lot of important titles. That last one's my favorite. Sharon, glad you're here.
Thank you very much, Collin, and thanks to Abby for setting everything up.
Yeah, so my wife, Abby.
Mother Abby.
Right, it's going to get so confusing by the end. By the way, to keep this to be a full female episode, I did ask my wife if she would replace me as the host this week. She pointed to her very pregnant belly and said, I'm in the middle of the last favor you asked of me, so you're on your own, bud. So it's me instead. All right, so let's get right into our topics. We've got a number of things to cover. First, I wanted to ask, because this is unique. We don't often have this unique of a perspective on our SFRs. So I've got a couple questions I want to ask you guys that I think could provide some really good insight to our viewers and to those people out there who share a common goal, which is to get more right of center people elected and to pass more good policy in Springfield and at the local level. Something that I'm seeing around the country as I go around and train over the last 4 or 5 years, I've noticed that the people coming to these right of center trainings have been more and more female, to the point where I'm shocked if it's not majority female at these trainings. You really have seen a lot of significant improvement with women getting involved in the Republican Party. And so I'd ask, is that something you guys are seeing, and what's sort of your role in making that happen? Because it does seem to be a really good success story for our party. Anyone can feel free to jump in first.
Well, Abby may want to do that just because of her position with the Lincoln series, but
yeah, I'd say, with the Lincoln series having played a big role in this. What do you think about this, Abby?
Yes. Well, in 2024 marks the 30th year of the Lincoln series. So for anybody in the audience who's not familiar, the Lincoln series is an organization that recruits and trains Republican women to run for office ideally, but if nothing else, train them to work on successful campaigns from all levels of government. So, but yes, have really seen a big surge in the interest, and really all throughout the state. I think there's a lot of common misconception that there's no Republican women in the suburbs or in the city, but I have not seen that be the case. We just really have had people get involved and just really care, whether it's they want to join their local school board, all the way up to, we have 2 women that are alumni of our program running for state house right now. So I just think that we've seen a big surge in that. And I agree, even since, I would say even 2 years ago, there weren't as many women at events and getting involved. So it's been really exciting.
Well, and one thing I love about the Lincoln series, we've had a number of our team members that we've put through it, and we've sponsored a number of years and a number of events. And what I love is you guys focus on quality more so than quantity. Your quantity is amazing, but it's a year-long program. It isn't come to one training and get a few hours of training. It's you guys really invest heavily all year. And so you're really setting up these women for success. I think it's a huge reason why we've seen positive movement in this area.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, quality over quantity, because we really want to get people that are really truly investing in themselves and investing in the future of whatever cause they're wanting to participate in, and really investing in the future of Illinois and our country. So that's really important. And like I said, we've got quite a few people running for office right now or working as campaign managers and things like that. So it's been awesome to see everybody get involved.
Yeah, Lana, let me I don't like to throw it around to people, so feel free to just jump in when you got something to say. But just real quick, I'll throw it to you, Lana, because in your position with the Illinois Federation of Republican Women, I know you guys have been really educating women on the election, getting them involved, helping them to get engaged. So I know you guys have done a ton of work on this as well.
That's right. I know back in 2016 is when I ran for precinct committeeman for the first time. And Tony McCombie was our vice president at the time of our local Carroll County Republican Women's Club, and she was also our elected state representative at that time. And she helped us all get better educated as to what is a precinct committeeman. And the ladies in our area wanted to know more. And so I then later became president of our local organization as Tony stepped on and became more involved in Springfield. And then I became president of Illinois Federation of Republican Women. And we're trying to help all of the women in our state better understand what is the road to the convention. And we want to help them understand what is a precinct committeeman, what is a county convention, which is coming up pretty soon, what is our state convention. And so all of those things, as a former educator, that's an important thing to me, to help people become more educated. And I hope in the future replace me, because one of these days I will step down, but I want to mentor people to help mentor them and fill the roles that we need to have filled.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda, she mentioned the convention. I know that's a big focus of yours with the convention down in your neck of the woods, and using that as an opportunity to train people and get them prepared. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and that's something that we just talked about at our last county chairman's Zoom call, which was actually this last Monday. We normally have an all call for all of our county chairmen, all 102 county chairmen. Usually it's the first Monday of each month. And last month in January, we actually did regional in-person meetings all over the state for all 5 regions. We had that set up. But anyway, at our meeting on Monday, our Zoom call, we went in depth and talked about not only county conventions, that take place actually 29 days right after the March 19th primary, but then we went into the save the date for the state convention, which will be May 24 and 25 in Collinsville at the Gateway Convention Center, and what will actually take place at that state convention. So it's very technical, it's very in-depth, but we went over all of those things for our county chairman. So those are very key, important factors. We recorded that information, so those county chairmen who couldn't be present, we'll get that link out to them so that they'll have those very important pieces of information. I'll be with Lana at her convention in the spring. What's that? April, what is that, the 5th and 6th?
In East
Yes.
Peoria.
in East Peoria. So we'll go over those things. So it's all about educating and getting our people on board. So it's a very exciting time, not only just for women, but for all of those folks who are wanting to get involved at the local level. So it's about educating people. What I was thinking while Abby was talking about how many years ago, I remember jumping in and running in 06 for state representative. You know, we were very blue in the southern part of the state, and it took many years for us to turn red. They were not ready for women to run for the offices of state rep, those types of things. That's the same time Judy Bard Topinka ran for governor. I believe it was back in that time. I mean, it was the worst time for people to be running, I believe, back in that time. But I remember a saying that I've kept with me, and it's resonated: when women work, we win. And it's just the truth, you know, because
absolutely.
women are just, they're worker bees, and that's being recognized now. It's took a long time for that to be recognized, and for women and for people to really realize, because at that time, you know, I got a lot of votes, but people really weren't ready. Oh, a woman, they shouldn't be a state rep. Down south, men just had that mentality. They weren't really being ugly, but they just saw that as a man's place. But now,
well, I think that's a good point. Let me pass it over to Sharon or Cindy, because I got to tell you, two of the toughest people that I know, not women, people, two of the toughest people I know are Sharon and Cindy.
Exactly.
Taking on the establishment, taking on opposition forces that have just been ridiculous. So feel free, either of you, to jump in on this. I'm just curious your thoughts on more women getting involved in politics, especially on the Republican side, and what you've seen.
Well, I mean, from my side, it's, you know, when I first got into politics, I was told I had to ask the committeemen if I wanted to run for trustee. And my answer was, why? You know, and I got a lot of pushback from that. And I was going to run anyway. I didn't care. I'd find a way. But knowing that there was that established thing, and I was told, well, you have to follow along with that person. Well, when that person was in the news for not very good reasons, I immediately pushed back and I said, take that guy off my endorsement list. And I was ostracized not only by the men in the group that I was running with, but the women too, because how dare I? Now, this was something that just was way off the charts.
If you want to be safe, I can say it. I mean, he was caught in his basement in his kid's playroom with prostitutes. Kind of a big deal.
Right. And obviously very offended at that. I wasn't raised that way, and I'm sure most of us weren't. But I think what happens is, we get people like that, and, Republicans are pretty good about, pushing back, but not always, because someone may be in a particular, point of seniority or power and position. But what I see is that people are afraid to get involved because of that, is they don't want to have that controversy. I mean, and I was, home, my husband was in Afghanistan at the time, and here I'm getting threatening messages, and, that's why people don't want to get involved. And I'm a retired police officer, so I could care less. But most people aren't going to feel that way, whether you're a woman or not. But if you're a woman by yourself, you want to be involved, you're going to not be involved when those kind of things happen. And I think that just even holding our candidates, our legislators, our elected officials to that higher standard. And that's what I don't see. And, when the women in Springfield have to have a buddy system, that they have to text somebody if they're uncomfortable with somebody, at a meeting, that to me is just insane. And, that's going to keep people away. And the more we don't hold people accountable for their misdeeds or their low, what's the word?
Integrity or values.
Yeah, low values. I see this every day. And who wants to get involved in that?
Well, you
Mhm.
mentioned that, Cindy. If you're here with us on voice,
Yes.
people will be shocked to know some of the things you've had to put up with there in Orland Park and Orland Township.
Well, it's interesting because I listen about getting women involved and men not really accepting them. Here, we have a hard time getting women to get involved. We want women candidates. They bring certainly a different perspective, for a lot of the reasons the other guests have already mentioned. But it's hard to recruit women being, a suburb of Cook County. And unfortunately, with the Democratic machine alive and well in the township in which I reside and hold office, people don't want to get caught up in that, because even if you have a candidate that has a stellar, clean, awesome background, if they don't have anything in your background, they will make it up. And Collin is well aware of some of the things, that I've been through personally, but it's interesting because it only makes you stronger. It only makes you more committed to the cause, because if they want to talk about you, and bring up things that never even happened or have these stories, it just invigorates you more, and people eventually see through that. You do that through facts.
Cindy, let's use that as a transition with you to our next topic, which is, how do we better support getting women involved in politics? Because I know when you mentioned those attacks, I mean, it's just, I've seen the nastiness of attacking you and your family, attacking candidates' kids, attacking them at their place of work, making up lies, putting out just ridiculous things about so-and-so is having an affair with so-and-so. It's just, I don't know why, but it's certainly especially true in your region in the South suburbs, this nastiness that still involves in politics.
Certainly.
So how do we somehow overcome that and get more women who are willing to put their name on the ballot and put up with the crud that is today's politics?
Well, you're absolutely right. You have to call it out for what it is. How do you defend a negative? That's always hard, but it does. Strong women, when they hear, what has transpired, they are stepping up to the plate. They are supporting other women, which is a nice thing. I mean, now I have a candidate pool, to draw from, which a couple of years ago I didn't, because, when the attacks are continuous, we have an issue with illegal anonymous robocalls that come at all hours of the day and night. And it's really horrific, attacking just about everyone through anonymous packs, which we know do not exist. But I think because there's been so much of it, that people are fed up and want to get involved to change it. And, if you weren't making a difference, they wouldn't be attacking you. So I guess that's the good you could take out of it, right? If you weren't doing your job and getting things done and kind of changing up the dynamics, they wouldn't be talking about you or coming after you so hard. So I think our constituents, I know, are seeing through that. And we are having women now that are coming up and saying, I'd like to be considered for this. I'd really like to run for the school board. I think I could make a difference. So I think we've turned the corner here, Collin, with the nastiness that we had when our mayor was elected. And of course, 2 years later, when 3 of us ran and then changed the board with our mayor, the attacks have been ongoing. But the good thing is I think it's actually, people are seeing through it now, because it's been so many and it's been so ridiculous, completely ridiculous.
Deliver on your promises and people will see through it.
And
what do you guys think to the rest of our group? What do you think? What could be done to help get more women involved? What supports or what changes or what things would you like to see that would help this goal move along?
I think a lot of it is having a good support system. I know Toni McCombie's name was mentioned, and she has like a all women's group text chat right now with all the the current legislators and all the candidates that are working together. And she's just so good about pumping them up and what can I do to help? And, there's a lot of them that are moms, and what do I do when, do I take my child to this? Do I get daycare? All of those concerns. But I really think, as a whole, we just really need to support each other and listen and, offer advice, what we've seen, what to expect. I think on one hand, you don't want to sugarcoat it and say none of this is going to be bad, but I think there also needs to be something that's said that, you know, you're going to have a support system, you're going to be do great, you know, really encourage and support each other. I think that's important. And for women in general, we all need to support each other. But in this world, you know, when things can get really ugly and icky, you just need to have some good people that you can rely on or bounce ideas off of, and then never read the comments on anything.
That's true. Just be a positive reinforcement, be an encourager instead of a discourager, be an encourager. And being the first female president of the County Chairmen's Association, I'm seeing a lot of women county chairmen all across the state. And we do bind together, you know, and the men, I mean, it's a good group. Our last meeting, and Lana can attest to that, people, we stick together, whether it's male or female. We are really uniting against the negative. There's so much negative out there in this primary. I've never seen anything like it. It's worse than normal, it seems to be. But I'm seeing people uniting. They're seeing through that, the women and the men. And that's what we've got to do to encourage each other, to keep on keeping on.
I can jump in. I can jump in here, Collin. 2 years ago, my senator and my state rep both encouraged me. Yes, Lana, you can run for county chair. And I am now currently the county chair, and I'm going to be running again for Carroll County, Illinois. But another example I want to give you is that I got a text message last night from a lady in DuPage County, and she was furious. She had just heard the news about this liberal judge in Chicago. And she said, Lana, what can I do? She says, I met this lady. Her grandson happens to swim with my grandson. And that's how I met her. and I said, tell me, what do you want to do? She said, I want to get involved. She says, I've had it. This is the last straw. What do I do? And I said, well, first of all, you can call your county chairman. Here's your county chairman's name. Tell them that you want to get involved. And also, we have Illinois Republican women clubs all throughout the state. And if we don't have one close to you, you can start a club, and this is the way you do it. And she was very thankful to just have somebody that she could reach out to and talk to. And I said, call me anytime, and we will help you. If I can't help you, I have other people who will help you.
That's awesome.
So that, like Rhonda said, encouragement. We just need to lift each other up and reach out and just be sounding board and to help.
You know, Collin, I think part of it too is that a lot of people assume all Republicans are the same extreme, you know, and I am constantly I'm more of that moderate side. I always have been. And when you have people saying, oh, I don't want to be anywhere near that party because they're so over the top. Well, no, I'm going to say there's very few people are over the top, but they're the loudest ones. When we don't reach out to people and say, no, we're going to work with what the actual issues are, and the ones that we don't we disagree on, we're going to sidestep those. And I think that it just holds people back, because if they don't think that they're going to be welcome, they're not going to do it.
Well, it's an awesome segue. It's like you guys don't even need me. You could just do the segues yourself. I love it. It's an awesome segue to our next topic. So let's stick with you, Sharon, on this. The next topic here, it's something I really genuinely want to ask, just because in the last couple of years in polling, when I just pull out the Republican responses and I look at males versus females, it's something new that I've been seeing, that the female responses in the Republican subgroup tend to be more conservative even than the male responses, which is unique. That was never happening before. And when you just look at in general, females versus males, females do tend to be more moderate, more sort of in the middle. It's just when you pull out that Republican subgroup right now, it seems like there's a little bit more of a conservative bent amongst women that I hadn't seen before. Maybe I'm just reading too much into these polls. I haven't heard a lot of reporting on this. So I'm just curious. Have you guys seen anything about this? Obviously, Sharon, you'll probably disagree with that based on what you just said, but I'm just curious if you guys have seen something like this, or if there's really nothing there.
I would just disagree on that, only because I think there's so many people out there that would identify themselves as Republicans if certain issues weren't part of it. You know, so abortion would be one of them. You know, hey, I'm pro-life for myself, but it's not my decision for somebody else, you know, and that's always been, but there, you're going to have a lot of women more like that. But God forbid they bring it up and tell somebody, because it's going to be blowing up in their face.
So maybe the idea here is then when you look at the subset of Republican women who are less conservative, are just saying, yeah, I'm not a Republican right now. And so the data right now is skewed because we're missing that group. That could be, that very well could be true.
Yeah, no, you hit, that's the way I feel about it. I know too many people that don't want to be identified that way, but they are pretty much in line with everything I do. I believe.
It's going to be something we need to know going into the general election, because these are obviously voters we're going to need. And if they're not willing to call themselves Republican, we got to be prepared for that.
Right.
I feel like if you're thinking of Illinois as a whole, it's very hard to go off of that. But I think more downstate, I live in Springfield. I think Springfield South, I do think that's a lot different than even Bloomington. I mean, I used to live in Bloomington Normal for 14 years. Even Bloomington Normal has changed a lot. But I do think downstate and Southern Illinois, I think what you're saying does have a lot of truth to it. Actually, our Lincoln Series class last year, we had a woman from the city, well, like she might as well live in the city, and then 2 people in the suburbs, and then 1 from Carbondale. And it was very interesting. They all identify as Republicans, but their views were very, very different. So I do think sometimes with Illinois being such a big and different state that I do think it's true that downstaters are definitely more conservative, and you're seeing a lot more, even more conservative women these days. But I do think, and I know I said earlier, I don't feel like there's no Republicans in the suburbs, that I still think that's true, but I just think that some of that is a regional thing.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense.
That's
Lana, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Comment, Collin. I think that Republican women also are seeing the concern that we have for children being trafficked, and we hear about that so much, being trafficked across the border. And because we're mothers, many of us are mothers, our grandmothers, we have a heart for that. And so that's one thing that I'm seeing, rumblings and discussions in various groups of people, that there is a genuine concern for the children being trafficked in our country.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
And that's uniform across the state. I think we all agree, because Lana and I, though we're from one end of the state to the other, we totally agree on all of those issues. And in the southern part of the state, the Democrats and the Republicans are not that far apart. They're pretty much the same. And that's why you've seen most all of the Democrats flip to Republicans, because they're all conservative. They're conservative, and that's it. And that's why you've seen such a shift, and that they've all really pretty much, they can no longer, they just cannot go along with the liberalistic ideas that the Democrat Party has ascribed to. So most of them have all become Republicans. So that's why I'm good.
That makes a lot of sense. Cindy, on your end, we've got, we'll figure out the tech issues and hopefully get to see your face soon. But we're talking about this topic of, what perspective are Republican women more conservative, more moderate? I know in Orland, you guys just focus on common sense candidates, right? That's your big thing?
Absolutely. Certainly we want Republican candidates in my role, but to Sharon's point, what she said about people not wanting the Republican, but they're almost, they don't want to come out and say it. We have a lot of that here. We have a lot of, even, you see that on the polling, right? Or the polling places when you go to early voting or election day and you see people come in, the Republicans are always quiet, they're focused, but when they come out, they interact with you. But on the way in, they don't. They don't want to admit that they're Republican, even though I have a big Republican shirt on. So it's kind of shadow. It's kind of interesting. But I think she's right. I think we're becoming a little more of the same than different in light of things going on in the world. And I think with women, to what Lana said, when you're a mother, you tune into certain issues. I mean, I don't care what political persuasion you are. When you're a mother, those things that you hear about trafficking, what's going on at the border, I mean, that hits home. That's a maternal instinct that screams to. And I think you take the labels away. You're a mom, you're a mom. I think women are a lot more alike in their thinking than different.
Interesting. Let me ask the last of these questions, then we'll get into our political topics of the week. So just, you guys will probably all have different advice here, but what advice can you give? How can the Republican Party better reach female voters? Anyone feel free to jump in if you've got thoughts on this, but what advice should we be hearing from you guys on how to reach female voters?
Well, Collin, I think that we're already doing that somewhat in that we've made history by having the first female House leader in Springfield. Toni McCombie was elected as House leader. And so Toni has done a great job statewide reaching out to Republican women and helping all groups in all sections of the state. And locally, we have Illinois Federation of Republican Women is reaching out to women in different counties across the state. We work with the county chairman in the state. For example, a couple of years ago, we worked with the county chairman, and he helped us get some ladies together. And he said, these ladies want to have a club, but they don't know how to. And so because of our county chairman in that county, we were able to develop a new club for that particular county. And when I attended the RCCA meeting last August in Springfield that Rhonda hosted, and I met a county chairman, a lady county chairman from downstate Illinois, and she says, we've got ladies who want to have more influence and more knowledge about the Republican Party. They might not want to run for office, but they want to be informed, and they want to be able to tell their neighbors or their family members what's going on in politics. They just want to hear from their local politicians, when they go to Republican Women's Club in their county. And so I see that as one way that we can better support is if people support Republican women. We, in fact, one thing I want to give a little plug here. Back in 1998, Mary Jo Arndt was our IFRW president, and she became the NFRW president, National Federation of Republican Women president. And in that time, she worked with another group to create the Lincoln series. And we are very proud to support the Lincoln series here in Illinois. Mary Jo Arndt, one of our former presidents, helped to found that. And we totally support what the Lincoln series is doing. We're educating women, we're reaching out, and we're helping them and lifting them up, giving them the confidence that they need to be able to run for whatever, if it's state rep, senator, or work as a political aide.
No, that's great. And provide more active support to these groups that are on the front lines already fighting this battle. I think that's a great thought. Who else has advice on what people could be doing to further this goal?
I've been meeting with women, going to their various groups all around, and women that do want to start their own county organizations. But I have to tell you, there have been women who are active. We just don't know about it. All these years. I mean, they're not formally active, so to speak, but the whole time we've been on this call, and I kind of laugh because just about every day I have an 80-year-old woman who will reach out. She'll send me on Messenger something, a piece of information, or she'll ask me something. And the whole time we've been on this call, she sent me a message. She said, what about this thing that's going on, regarding President Trump and being thrown off? And so I forwarded her the information that I know about, this being stayed and all this stuff, and sent her the information. This has been going on the whole time we've been on this call. So women are active. She's 80 years old. They know what's going on. She lives in the housing project. She talks to all the other women there. I sent her the information back. She's already spreading that. And she's already sent me back, what a crock, she said.
So what you're saying is that there's a lot of women out there who are active, but we haven't engaged them. So maybe that's part of this is engaging. Okay. What else?
Yeah. So
I think the flip side of your 80-year-old friend is I think we can't count out the young people. I think our young women in college, even in high school, kids. But I really think all ages and really getting them involved. And I don't know that the younger generations necessarily just vote a certain way because that's how their parents did. I think a lot of them are very decisive on their own, or maybe they didn't grow up in a family that voted or was civically involved. So I really think we need to really reach out to our young women and say, you know, you're really going to make some choices for your future and your future family and children and all of that stuff. So I really think we need to really start working on that. And that's something
On our
we've,
young Republicans.
yes, we've had a lot of conversations as a Lincoln Series board. Because now as past president, I'm still on the board of really trying to work on getting some young women and, you know, fresh out of college, get them to go through the program and things.
Yeah, I think that'd be huge. That's great. And it is an area that just as a party we've got to get better at, but especially if we can in this discussion get to younger women and let them know, because you can tell the left, a big focus on their part has been getting to young women, especially on issues that resonate well with them, and it's a challenge for us.
I think
Sharon, Cindy, what do you guys think? Go ahead, Sharon.
I was going to say part of the problem is just getting them to vote.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
a lot of them won't vote. I mean, I've had grown women tell me that, oh, well, my husband told me the primary doesn't matter because it's not the real election. Actually said those words.
Yeesh.
We don't educate people.
Maybe that's
on
why I
what,
don't have a husband.
yeah, well, you and me both, but so, but you know, we don't educate our young people as to the importance of, you know, especially the local elections. We just don't educate people. I voted in every single election since I was 18, but that's me. I don't know
Right.
anybody my age that has ever done that.
Hmm.
So we're missing
Cindy,
out.
what do you think on this? Close us out on this. You're muted, by the way, but close us out on this final topic here before we get into the weekly political topics.
Well, very quickly, I am seeing at more of our meetings, more of a younger group showing up. And we do hope on a local level to hook up with, you know, Chicago has been very active with their young Republicans. They have a really core group, have a lot of fun outings, you know, having kids that are that age now, young Republicans, they like to go to events where they have fun. They don't like sitting in meetings, you know, pleading for donations or support. We alienate them, and that's unfortunately a lot of our meetings. Although we try to make it, you know, not as obvious, but we need support, and of course we need money. So if we do fun events that bring in money and get their support, that's a win. So that's what I would like to focus on. You know, both my daughters, I have a nurse and a school teacher. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. They're Republicans, but they don't have an outlet. They don't want to come to young old people's meetings, right? So we have to have fun events. Unfortunately, that's just the reality, but I am seeing our attendance. Just to give you an example, there was a fundraiser last night for Nikki Conforti, who's running for the Illinois 6th District for Congress. A whole 2 tables full of young people. Now that was really inspiring. So the one young man in particular, he's an outstanding athlete, Olympic nature, I mean, known in our area. And it's funny, we're having this conversation because I would like to have him lead our group of young Republicans. You know, because of his passion, his record, and his standing in the community, he'd be an excellent person. So if we can identify young people who, you know, others would look up to help carry that message, I think that's really important. And I'm fortunate enough to have found him last evening.
Well, listen, we've been talking about how we've seen so much positive movement. When you see changes in demographics, it takes a very, very long time. So, you know, men have obviously dominated our party for a very long time, but these changes we're seeing at these meetings that we're going to, where you see most of them are majority female, for that to be reflected in our elected officials and our party leadership, that's going to take decades, because that movement takes a lot of time. It's not like the men who've been involved for a long time and females, but all the people who've been involved just disappear overnight. So when you talk about demographic changes, it sometimes takes decades. And so I think the positive news that I'm hearing is the work that's being done now is already bearing fruit, but you fast forward to a decade from now, and I can only imagine how much, you know, positive movement there will have been because of the hard work of people like you guys. So that's awesome. Let's jump into our political topics here. And as always, some of these will be ones you guys want to talk about, some are ones you don't. The good news about having 6 of us is we don't all have to talk, especially since if we do all talk on every topic, we're only going to get through like 2 of them. So jump in on what you want to, but this first one has just been driving me crazy all week, and I'm sure some of you as well. Thanks to Alabama, IVF has become a big issue in the elections, and for whatever reason, Republicans in Illinois, especially at the congressional level, have been frustratingly silent. Meanwhile, Democrats are pouncing on this. Pritzker's come out and said, our rights are in danger, and if you watched any SFR for the past few weeks, been talking a lot about how that's the big Democratic narrative for 2024. Threats to democracy. Republicans and Trump are going to take away your rights. That's their narrative. And so they're using this again to say your rights are in jeopardy. You saw Pritzker's chief of staff come out and say that Democrats should be talking about this issue every single day. National Democrats have talked about how they're putting money into legislative races across the country to talk about IVF and to talk about how Republicans are putting IVF in jeopardy. Last thing I'll say about this before I open it up for your thoughts is the NRSC, so the National Republicans Senate arm, their campaign committee, put out a memo with polling from Kellyanne Conway that gave some very interesting stats. So 86% when they polled support increasing access to IVF. 78% of pro-lifers, 83% of evangelicals all support IVF. 85% said they were more likely to support a candidate who increased the availability of contraceptives and fertility-related treatments, including 87% of women. The NRSC is actively pushing their candidates to express their support for IVF, oppose restrictions, and even campaign on increasing access. This is a big issue. This is going to be make or break probably for us in November based on the path we're going. And right now in Illinois, I haven't seen, especially from our Republican members of Congress, a lot about this issue. We're vulnerable here. Curious about your guys' thoughts on this topic.
I think I'll start that one off, Collin.
ahead.
So, Collin and I have had conversations. Abby and I have had conversations. I did multiple levels of IVF. I was unfortunately unable to have children. So, I think I'm going to move because I think I need to plug my computer in the process. But so the knowing that I did this, I was very disappointed when I happened to notice a senator who is a current senator, and I will not name that individual, did an article regarding saying that IVF is like cheating on your husband. And to me, that was pretty, of course, my fight instinct came out, and I ended up writing a letter to the editor regarding that. I was very upset, knowing that people just don't get it, just because I couldn't have children that way. But, I'm Catholic. The church was fine with me doing it. So why can't Republicans be fine with doing it? It is stressful. It is emotional. It is physical. And when people don't understand that, then stay out of it. I mean, if you've never done IVF, then you shouldn't say a damn word, as far as I'm concerned. It's not, it's like I can't even tell you the frustration.
No,
huh?
It's
very frustrating, and just to reiterate, or to go back to what we were talking about earlier, I couldn't be a mother. And that is my one regret throughout my entire life. And when people say, oh, I'm a mother and I know better, you can't say those things to people. And I just want to put that out there because people don't realize what they're saying. It's not that I don't want to be a mother. I can't be a mother.
Well, you're trying to be a mother, and that's the way. My background's healthcare. I'm a registered nurse, so I know those, and I know many who've gone through that. So it is, it's expensive, it's heartbreaking, it's very time consuming, and it's painful. And if you can do that, there's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Well, when you have an issue that 87% of any demographic support, that's as people evolve with politics, and Abby, I know you've seen a zillion polls in your life. When 87% support something, that's basically saying it's universal. And 87% of women want to see increased access to IVF. So if Republicans don't jump on board with this, if the Democrats are able to paint us as anti-IVF, that's a killer.
Collin, Illinois is one of the few states that actually has insurance cover IVF. Not all the states will force the insurance companies to do that. So we are very fortunate in Illinois for that reason.
I can tell you, as the one paying those bills for me and my wife to go through that process, they cover very little of IVF, but it's true they at least cover something. But every spare penny we've had for the last 3+ years has gone into IVF. So they don't cover much, but you're right. It's at least something.
Yes.
But it's becoming increasing. I mean, this is something we're seeing more and more in the daily lives of people having to move to this as fertility rates decrease just in our general population. IVF's becoming bigger and bigger. If the Democrats are able to point Republicans as being on the wrong side of IVF, I don't know that we'll win another election in the suburbs ever. I mean, this is danger Will Robertson territory, and I'm nervous because while Trump did come out in support of IVF, which was a great thing that he did, I'm not seeing enough Republicans, and obviously watching sort of the circus that is DC and the challenges of getting something done in there. We need some of our more state people to step up and turn this narrative around, because Pritzker and the Democrats are already painting us at the state level as anti-IVF, and that's not good for us.
Collin, I just heard from my state senator, and he said, yes, Republicans are pro IVF. He's my state senator.
Well, we need him to put out a press release and do a press conference and make sure that word gets out.
Needs to be better communication, just like everything else in education in regards.
And listen, when you talk about our state legislature, both the Senate and the House, we've talked on previous SFRs, the comm shops in both the Senate and the House have been really impressive. They've really upped their game. So I'm sure I'm hopeful there's conversations going on about this, about what do we do, because the narrative's starting to go away from us. We don't have a lot of time. So knowing them, they're having conversations, but it's got me nervous and a little bit frustrated, kind of like you, Sharon.
Well, and we are constantly on defense. We are never on offense for every subject.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another one of those subjects. We've asked before. We don't really have clarification yet, but there has been chatter about Democrats putting an abortion referendum on the ballot in Illinois in 2024. The reason why this is news again is J.B. Pritzker was just in Las Vegas last weekend as they kicked off their constitutional amendment effort to put an amendment on the ballot there in Nevada for 2024. There are multiple states doing this, in many cases using J.B. Pritzker's money as he's trying to raise his profile nationally. So I'm curious, number one, is this something we might see in Illinois in 2024? And is abortion going to be a hot topic here in November? Curious what you guys think about that.
I think it became such a hot topic last cycle that I don't know why they wouldn't pounce on it and try to use it again in their favor.
Yeah, I agree, Abby. It's the perfect subject to go to make people mad about Republicans.
Well, Sharon, you're right there. That's the goal, right? It's not about the issue itself. This is where Democrats are much better than Republicans when it comes to marketing. It's never the issue. It's what does the issue prove? And so it's not really about abortion. It's about, does abortion prove that Republicans are extremists or that they want to take away your rights? It's a narrative, just like IVF. Everything else is to prove that larger picture. And so I'd imagine, just like you said, Abby, I'd imagine they'd go back to that well. I'm kind of curious. We saw Kelly Cassidy, one of the further, more progressive members of the Illinois House on the Democratic side, kind of throw water on it, saying he might not actually put it on the ballot. I was kind of shocked by that, because I don't know why they wouldn't, unless they're trying to save it for 26 so they can use it to gin up the vote in 26 for either Pritzker or whoever they run for governor in 26.
Sure.
Interesting. Any other thoughts on abortion before we keep moving along here? We've talked about it a lot, so I think people are just kind of sick of having to talk about it.
There'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more.
All right, let's talk about this, the grocery tax. So in the last week, you've seen a lot of pushback from locals. And I would probably ask Sharon and Cindy to kind of kick us off on this, being local elected officials, both currently and in the past. There's been a lot of pushback on Pritzker. So we talked about last week for our viewers that Pritzker wants to eliminate the grocery tax, the 1% sales tax on groceries. The challenge there is that revenue does not go to the state. It goes to local municipalities. Right. And so Pritzker is basically eliminating yet another funding source for local municipalities that many would just have to make up, probably through property taxes. And so there's a challenge there. So I'm curious, what's the perspective from the local level on, good politics, but is it good policy?
Well, I can tell you that we continuously get phone calls from the local, the villages, the townships or whatever, that they're already not getting what they were supposed to get. And, their funding was already cut, years ago. And they're trying to get it back to that 10%, and they're not even, that's not happening. So now you're going to take away more. And all that means is they have to make it up somehow. And when they're constantly giving out more ways for people to not pay their taxes, their property taxes, then the people who can least afford them end up paying for it.
Yeah, fair.
I completely agree with you. What you're seeing, especially in the south suburbs of Chicago, the taxes are 6, 7, 8% of the value of the home. You know, if you go into areas that are struggling economically, right now the homeowner is burdened with that. What that's going to do, you know, taking away that grocery tax to the municipality, like you said, they're going to get their funding sources somewhere. You're going to see the property tax increase. So at the end of the day, the taxpayer isn't seeing any relief. You know, I think it's a political game. What they've taken away from the municipalities is a shame. That we were supposed to be at 10%. I think Orland Park right now is at 6%, which represents a lot of money. Fortunately, we're a community that has a lot of business, a lot of retail, a lot of restaurants, a lot of shopping, some industrial. So we're able to somewhat absorb it. You know, we do have to make cuts as a result of it, but who you really feel bad for are the struggling communities and the people who are paying a high percentage of property taxes, because then you're going to start seeing, you know, like we saw, you know, my real job is real estate. I've been in it 40 years. So you're definitely going to see a correlation between the high property taxes and people, especially seniors, unable to afford their homes. And that's a horrific thought on any senior, no matter where they live. They've lived in their home for 40 years. Now they're being forced to move because of the taxes. Why? Because you're taking taxes away from the municipalities. This is just another way to do that. I know our mayor is fighting back. He's fighting back hard because it makes, you know, Pritzker look like a hero, but it's again another, you know, thing that goes on the shoulders of local government. So it's a really, really bad thing. I mean, it's, you know, people see it, and who doesn't want to lower their taxes? But let's look at the big picture. They're lowering here to raise it over there. There's no net gain for the resident, for the voter, for the you know.
And that's the big story, right? I mean, Cindy, the reports out of Pritzker's budget address are, you know, directly raising taxes by nearly $1 billion. But when you add in the fact that the exemption was supposed to be higher than what he put in there, it's actually well over $1 billion in tax increases. But here's a few pennies back on your groceries. I mean, that's the big story here.
Mm-hmm. True.
It's like the few pennies we got back on the gas tax. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah. But I think what you're seeing too is people are seeing this. I've heard some of our residents say they're taking, you know, going to not charge us for tax on groceries so we can have more money for all the migrants, the illegals that are coming in. So I think this may, you know, and these are people that are fairly educated that think that they need more money to offset what it's doing to the budget because of the illegal migration that we're having, particularly in Chicago.
Well, it's a big wedge issue for Republicans for sure right now that you see, you know, in many Black communities, in many lower income communities, that's a big narrative, even the Democratic side, of saying, why are we putting so much money into migrants and even into, you know, healthcare for undocumented when we have so many people of our own people who need assistance, lower income communities, veterans, other groups that desperately need assistance. Illinois is one of the worst states at funding mental health. And yet we're putting, you know, all the money that we're putting into other things. So that is a big positive issue, well, at least useful issue politically, maybe not positive, but a great political issue for Republicans right now. So you're absolutely right on that, Cindy.
I was going to say, Collin, even on our intellectually disabled, we are 49th out of 50 states in money going towards our disabled, our intellectually disabled. These folks didn't have a choice.
They weren't paying our senior citizens, our senior centers for food and things like that. And we're in some of the poorest counties in the state. And so that was a real problem for us, for healthcare and things, chore housekeeping and just to feed some of our seniors. And so that's a real problem. It's just a travesty. And then, you know, with the migrant status, that's what they were saying in our neck of the woods, that, you know, they're thinking the money's being, you know, just shuffled out of that bank to you know, shuffle toward the migrant status. So
let me jump to our last political topic, and then we'll get into some campaign stuff real quick as we're getting close to the end already. But last political thing that came up this week, really over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, is there's a bill that was filed and then quickly yanked back because they realized just how unpopular it was. That basically would have outsourced our vehicle emission standards to California. The bill would have essentially said whatever California says, we're going to do in Illinois, which, Illinois is blue, but it's working class blue. It's moderate blue, not progressive blue like California is. You read through some of California's requirements on vehicles in terms of, basically it would be you couldn't buy a vehicle that wasn't all electric within like the next 10 years. I mean, it's really, really strict emission standards. When you put a bill through in Springfield that even Pritzker says, no, I won't touch that, it's pretty far left. But they did put it through, and this was the Democrats who made it happen. And so you have yet another situation of Democrats in Springfield just showing how far left their caucus has gone, just how progressive their caucus has become. And on the Republican side, there's people who talk about maybe how more conservatives have more of a voice. There's not a lot of press that gets into just how far left the Democratic caucus has gone. But when they have bills like this, that would make us basically the tied for first in the most progressive of vehicle emission standards in the whole country. And Illinois is not that deep blue. It's yet another sign. So it's an opening for Republicans when the Democrats' energy agenda in the state is raising costs, energy rates on working class families throughout the state. It's yet another opening for us. That is a long-winded way to introduce sort of an energy topic, but I've heard energy a lot lately from manufacturers, from business owners, from families, how they've seen their energy rates just skyrocket. And this bill would have done it even more, and it would have made it that much more expensive for gas and for buying vehicles. I mean, these are things that are kitchen table issues that Republicans are on the right side of.
Well, Collin, I was picked up from the airport in a Tesla at San Francisco, and every car that was an Uber was a Tesla, which totally, I mean, if somebody has a Tesla around here, I think they've got money, but here all these Uber guys are driving around with the Teslas. So I'm assuming that's because they got all that money. I will tell you that we haven't heard a peep out of any of our constituents about that issue, sadly. But I think a lot of it is that they don't know what's going on. Again, that goes back to our, we don't get that information out quick enough to people, or loud enough, I should say.
Well, Dems jumped fast. Dem leadership made the sponsor of that bill yank it real fast because they knew it would hurt them in the election, but it was filed. So it's still something we can talk about, even though they yanked it really fast.
Most of the bills that get passed on the House floor, right before you'll hear them say, oh, well, so California does this. And I can tell you that's at least half the bills. So their whole thing is, oh, let's see what California is doing. Let's take their bill because they can't think on their own.
Oh, interesting. All right, let's get into some campaigns. I want to hear some of your perspective, guys, on some of the hot campaigns that are out there, especially because our primary is only a few weeks away. You heard a few people mention it about Trump being removed from the ballot. I've actually got a few questions from people on why we haven't talked about this on our SFRs. I'll give you the quick reason why we haven't brought it up. It's simply because it doesn't matter. So the lawsuit over whether Trump's on the ballot or not doesn't actually matter in Illinois, because in Illinois, it's the delegate races that actually matter. When you elect delegates, they go and they vote for the nominee that you want. And so the race between Trump and anybody else for the Republican primary, Biden and anybody else in the Democratic primary, it's window dressing. It doesn't actually matter. It's the delegate races that matter. So that's why we haven't talked about it, is whether they remove him from the ballot or not, it really isn't going to change anything in Illinois. So that's why we haven't talked about it. But there was news this week about a Chicago judge who removed Trump from the ballot. It'll likely be reversed by the Supreme Court prior to our primary. Doesn't really matter. If you want to talk about that, you can. Here's my secondary question that I do for sure want to get into, which is it's looking more and more likely like Trump will be the nominee for Republicans. We've seen that, especially in suburban areas, Trump has been a drag on the ticket down ballot. Do you guys anticipate that will happen again? And what can Republican candidates below the presidential race do to try to mitigate that some? What do you think? Sharon, I think you got some noise in the background there that's coming through.
Do you think that with this recent attempt to get him off, do you think that's going to change that trajectory and gin up, some angst that might change some of that or no?
We've seen that happen in areas, in more rural areas. So what we saw in 2 years ago and 4 years ago was that, yes, there is increased turnout in redder areas by about 6%. And so if you are living in a red area, there's a reason why those red areas have become even more red, is because, yes, there is angst and frustration and anger over all this BS. And so in red areas, we're going to win by even more. And that's great. The problem is in bluer areas, we've seen it hurt us, not help us. And so statewide, do those two things sometimes balance each other out? Actually, yes, a little bit. The problem is the 6 points we're gaining in areas that are already Republican, we're losing 6 to 10 points in areas we need to flip to make the state more Republican. And so it just overall isn't helping us. So will this maybe help us to hold on to some seats and pick up some more seats, maybe in the Metro East area, in Madison County? I know we've got some hot races in that area. We've got a state rep in Schmidt that we have to hold on to. This might help us do so. The question is, does it help us pick up some of these tier 1 races in the suburbs? It's going to hurt us more than it's going to help us, probably.
That's what I wondered. I didn't know.
I think people just need to be reminded that how important it is to vote down the ticket. I think that a lot of our message needs to be, I mean, I know the Trump thing is just so divisive, especially when you get north of 80, but I really think, I mean, like you said, we've got hot state rep races. There's a couple of Senate seats. I mean, I know that just from talking to different people, there's stuff at the county level, I think people really need to be reminded that their vote down the ballot really matters. So even though you might be really upset by that top of the ticket, you can still make a difference, and you can still help elect some of the, especially again, in these tier 1 races, your vote really counts.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah,
that needs to be the message, is just reminding people to just still go vote. I think
And
that
they
you're-
need to vote
a lot of
you're
people
100%
that are
right.
frustrated just tend to not vote, and that's
Yeah,
not.
well, and
that
not
doesn't
only
help
that,
anything.
I think you've hit on something key here, and we've never talked about this. So it's not only making sure they vote, it's also making sure they don't just vote at the top and then skip the rest.
Right,
One of the biggest
vice
frustrations
versa.
that the Republican Party had with Trump 8 years ago, and then again 4 years ago, was that a lot of his people would show up, vote for the presidential race, and then just skip the rest. And so Trump did well, but then he didn't have coattails because they didn't vote for the rest of the Republicans on the ballot. So you're absolutely right that if we need to get them out and then make sure they go all the way down to the end. Yeah, great
Do
point,
that
Aide.
early. Get it in there.
I voted today, actually.
There you go. See?
Yeah. Well, and I know the Illinois Republican Party is doing a big push in the Bank Your Vote program. They just had a fundraiser
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago that raised $450K towards this. Kudos to them. It's awesome work that they're doing. But I think to your point, Abby, it's the narrative is going to have to be not just go vote, but make sure you vote all the way down the ticket. That's kind of an amendment to the strategy that I think we definitely need to make sure we get out there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. It's something we're going to have to face, because at this point, that train's left the station. I know Chris is probably jumping up and down when he watches this, because he's been predicting Trump would be the nominee for a long time, and he's been proven right. So I don't know what could happen to change that fact. So we're going to need to start planning for that reality come November.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna play a radio ad briefly. I don't know if it's gonna come across to you guys, so if it doesn't sound great in post, Lane might bring it in post to play it. But I just want to play it here so you guys hear it, because I'm not sure all you guys have heard this. But the Angela Evans radio ad just made me cry in a very, very bad way. So I want to get your guys' take on this radio ad in her primary in House District 116. So hopefully you guys can hear this as I play it. Hold on.
Non-citizens living in Illinois. Illinois is one of the most welcoming states for people who have entered our country illegally. More than $2.5 billion of your tax money has been spent on programs and services for illegals. And thanks to Dave Severin, Illinois is one of the few states in the nation to allow non-citizens to become police officers. So to Dave Severin, the nearly 40,000 non-citizens who have come here from other states would like to say thanks. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Illinois is much better than Mother Russia.
We thank you. We love you long time, Mr. Dave. Muchas gracias, Daddy. Thank you. Thank you, Dave Severin, for voting to allow non-citizens to be police officers and arrest citizens of Illinois. Thank you, Dave Severin, for all that you do for the non-citizens of Illinois.
Paid for by friends of Angela.
So my focus on it, obviously there are bills that are being called out there that we could have some quibble about were they actually what they said, but it's the you know the and the computer generated fairly, I'm going to say it, racist voices that are used in the ad. I mean, there's dog whistles here. There's a lot here that unfortunately, yeah, I get it. You're running in a Republican primary. You need to get noticed, but the whole Republican Party is going to have to answer. We learned this when Ives ran her ad back years ago. The whole party will have to answer for things our candidates do. And there's a lot in this ad that I would not want to have to answer for. And I'm curious, am I just oversensitive, or were some of the things you guys heard in there a little bit concerning to you as well?
I had a Hispanic friend that I had hear that and was just livid. And of course, you didn't have the music playing that went along with that and all the I. No, I did hear it. And I can tell you that's backfiring on that candidate in a big way.
You know, I think we have to remember how sensitive people have become, you know, than, you know, 30 years ago. I mean, you could call, you know, I'm Polish. People would call me a Polak, you know, I mean, you know, or I'm Irish. People call me a drunk, whatever, you know. But people are so much more sensitive these days, and people are going to jump on it to use it against you. So they just got to be smart.
Yeah.
And that was not smart.
It wasn't.
Well, and Dave Severin's so lovable without all of that.
Yes.
I mean, he's great and he's done really,
He's a nice guy.
He's a hard worker and he's a great candidate. So I hope that they can spin that and not necessarily, I don't know that we need to get in a big race argument, but I do think, you know, I think we all just need to say, I love Dave Severin for other things.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair point. And from what we're hearing, Rhonda, I know you've seen the same thing. It seems like Severin's doing well in that race. It seems like he's in a good position. You know, when I see a candidate do this, what Evans just did, it's a tactic you do when there's a few weeks left and you know you're going to lose and you're just desperate for some kind of attention. That's what this is. Again, the problem is it might get you attention, but in many cases it's not good attention. And if you're supposedly for the good of the party, this is not the good of the party, because this is something that the left could make all of us answer for just because you decided to throw this up on the radio. Again, that's what they did with the Ives ad, where they made all of us have to answer for that ad. We've seen it happen in many other races where, you know, we all have to answer for what our candidates do and say, and this, you know, this could come back to haunt us.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and that's what I kind of said in our chairman's call. I mean, everybody has the opportunity in a primary to run, but it should be on what you think you can bring to the table, what you can offer that's good or better or whatever, not to just chop the legs out from the next guy. And we've got to figure out who we're running against, who our real opponents are. And it's the Democrats, not each other, not another Republican. We need to remember Reagan's 11th commandment. You know, that's the problem I've got with some of these and how contentious these primaries have become.
Yeah, well, you mentioned these primaries. Let me bring up a couple more. So House District 109, House District 110. Dick Uihlein, big funder of conservative and Republican causes, just dropped $150,000 into a different candidates committee that was where the caps were busted. We don't need to get into particulars, but that money is, from what we're hearing, going to be filtered to Niemerg and Wilhour to defend them in their primaries in 109 and 110. Niemerg is in a write-in battle against Jim Acklin, who's up on radio and has got a lot of big money behind him. Wilhour is in a primary up against Matt Hall, who just is backed by a lot of unions, and just the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police just came out that they're endorsing Matt Hall. So those are two really big primaries. The good news is they're deep red districts. So whoever wins the primary is going to be the legislator. It's going to be a Republican. So that's the good news. Curious if you guys have heard anything on those two races. Rhonda, I know you probably hear about these races all the time. Anything coming up that you're hearing that we should make sure people are aware of about those?
Well,
or are you just frustrated that we have primaries? Because you mentioned that earlier, that just we're wasting resources on primaries. Is that your takeaway?
Well, that is kind of the takeaway, really, because we're wasting a lot of money on these primaries when they could be better utilized to win seats against Democrats. That's the sad part, in my opinion, because that's an awful lot of money being wasted against Republicans. that's
Yeah,
the
and
part.
certainly hundreds of thousands of dollars going into these races. It's a valid point to say that that money could be useful in November. It's not a bad point.
It really
Now,
could be. Yeah,
would it be available to us in November? Depending on who the candidates are, maybe not, but it's still a valid perspective.
Right.
I think part of the problem is they should have just filed their paperwork correctly in the first place.
I mean, Niemerg
exactly.
wouldn't have a race in 109 if you just filed this paperwork, so you're not
Right.
wrong on that.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
And honestly, I don't necessarily agree with you, Rhonda, about, the primary, because what happens is people get entrenched and then everybody says, oh, well, that's just, we're going to just keep the same person over and over. And a lot of
Right.
times that's not good.
No,
So
I'm not negating that at all.
Yeah, but sometimes, I think the Republican Party needs to stay out of, the primaries and, let the people decide on themselves.
Right. Well, and I'm not negating that in any way, and that's what I've said before. If people want to run, they need to run, and that's not my take on that. But like you say, if he'd just done his paperwork right, we wouldn't be in that position. Nobody would even take him on, and all those types of things. But the same thing with Blaine. There's been some problems there, and that's why somebody has stepped up. So they're kind of two different issues there. So, but and then you've got somebody coming in, throwing big money at it, and we have this big turf war. So it is what it is, and the people need to decide. That's for sure. And that's going to be happening pretty quick. So
we're
but the
there.
problem is, and in this area, we're going to Lincoln Day dinners. They're calling each other out. It's the ugliness that ensues that is unfortunate. Rather than just saying, "Hey, what I can do to bring to the table, what I've done." What it is causing is them to step up and be on their toes a little more, do a little more than they've been doing. It is calling them to task, which is a good thing,
Fair point. Let's move to two of the big congressional primaries before we close out. I'm curious who has thoughts on IL 12. It's the sort of the big race that's been dominating headlines for months now. That's Darren Bailey versus Mike Bost. You've got Bailey, who's gone up on TV finally. He's put a $60,000 ad buy up on broadcast TV. Bost has been on for a while. Bailey's attacking Bost on immigration and supporting aid to Ukraine. Bost is obviously on TV with the big Trump endorsement that he got last week, which many of us have talked about maybe puts an end to that race. We'll obviously see what happens. Curious if you guys have any thoughts. We don't have a lot more time here to talk about the Bost versus Bailey race. So if anyone has any thoughts, feel free to jump in.
Well, I think, go ahead if you.
No, you go right ahead, Rhonda.
Well, I can tell you, it's absolutely wild in the 12th. Ever since President Trump made the endorsement, the Bailey camp has actually went full steam ahead, and they went pretty wild, because I don't think they anticipated that happening. And any of the Bailey supporters, honestly, they're in shock and awe, because I don't think they believe it yet. And it's actually caused complete full-on chaos almost at every event. The gloves are off actually on both sides of the camp now. And March 19th can't get here quick enough. I will tell you that.
Panic sets in, and we are definitely in political silly season. It's never fun.
Full on political, and the Bailey commercial with the whatever that is,
the flamethrower.
The flamethrower, that's actually a really good commercial. The pyromania in most people is pretty neat, but and then
listen, it makes me want to go play with a flamethrower. I'm not gonna lie, it's a great ad.
Set things on fire. and you want to set the world on fire. But that's really a good commercial. But the one for Congressman Bost with President Trump, then that comes on, and then you have the new one with Bailey that he uses President Trump shaking his head like no, and then it's confusing to people. So, and then when Matt Gaetz came in for Darren Bailey, and there weren't a whole lot of people there, and that was very confusing to people, and especially Matt Gates. So anyway, there's a lot of things whirling around about it, but I know it will be over soon.
Well, they say they know you by the company you keep. I don't know that I'd be, flying Matt Gates out to tell everybody he's endorsing me, but that's just me.
I know. So it's been quite the ride, and I don't know if you followed it at all. There's been it's just been
I
very
unfortunately get
exciting
minute by minute updates. So Rhonda, your point about just really can't wait until the 19th is over is fully accurate.
That's how most everybody feels, because it's been exhausting.
Well, here's the problem, which is what I've heard. The big narrative is people are actually a little bit upset because they kind of wanted. Now everyone loves Boss, don't get me wrong, but they kind of wanted Bailey to win that primary so we could contain his damage in that one congressional district. Because now, like, Darren Bailey can't not run for something. So in 2 years, my guess is he runs for governor, and now he's our nominee again for governor. So be careful what you wish for.
No, it's president.
Well, there you go, or that.
So,
yeah, be careful what you wish for.
I know. No, we're moving on. It'll be all right.
Sharon, it looks like you want to jump some thoughts, and then I want to get Lana's thoughts on aisle 17 before we close.
We have to remember that every time we criticize the other candidate or beat him up, instead of just pointing out the things that you're going to be doing to make, present yourself, every time we do that, all we're doing is giving the other side ammunition.
Exactly.
And, I get you have to run, but ripping somebody apart and creating more problems is not helpful.
Chopping the legs out from under somebody is not the way. It usually backfires. That's a fair point.
Lana, I want to ask you directly. So aisle 17, for those who don't follow the different numbers, that's Sorensen. That is our #1 congressional pickup opportunity in this state. We came really, really close last time. We had a great candidate, and they're going after him again. We're going to make it a big priority again this year, but we haven't heard a lot about it. And so I know you have some pretty good insight into what's going on in that race. And we don't hear enough about that as we get kind of into the statewide narrative and towards the city, but that is our best chance to flip a congressional district. We should be paying more attention. So there are 2 candidates on the Republican side, Judge Joe McGraw and Scott Crowell. And they're in a tough battle there for the primary to try to take on Sorensen in the general. What are you hearing about the 17th?
Well, as county chair in the 17th, I'm not endorsing either candidate, but I'm telling you, Collin, they're 2 great candidates, and it's quite opposite from what Rhonda just told you. It's the most congenial type of confrontation between the 2 men. I've gone to Republican women in Sauk Valley, which is Lee County and Whiteside County. And I heard Scott Crowell speak, a very nice man. I heard at Upper Northwest Illinois Republican women, Judge McGraw spoke, wonderful guy. And at Carroll County Republican women, and also at our central committee meeting, both of them spoke. They were both there. They were both very congenial, both very professional. And you know what? The best guy is going to win, and we are going to beat Sorensen. I have no doubt in my mind. But we've got a great candidate, and I think the people will speak. He's going to win after the people speak, and I feel very positive. I feel very, very positive. You probably already know that Judge McGraw is from the Winnebago County area. He's a retired judge. Scott Crowell is from down by the Quincy, Rock Island area. And so it's been a amicable race compared to what Rhonda just had spoken about down there in her district. But
you look at that district, Lane will bring up a map and post so our viewers can see it. It's a giant district, first of all. But the good news is when you look at the demographics of that district and the communities, it's extremely working class, moderate. This is not a deep blue district. This is also not a district where Trump kills us. And so I think there's a lot of reasons why 17, even if Trump's on the ballot and it maybe hurts us in some of the other districts like the 6th, where you are, Cindy, or some others, 17 is one of those that still remains in play. And so if we nominate a good candidate, Sorensen's not a great candidate on the Democratic side. I definitely think we could win that one. And Lana, you'll deserve the chance to have a party that night.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, let's get some closing thoughts from you guys as we close this down. I really appreciate all the time you guys have given us. Maybe I'll call on each of you one by one and give you a chance to share whatever's on your mind to close this out. Cindy, what are your final thoughts here as we close out the episode? Anything you want to share with
First
people?
of all, I just want to say thank you for having this. It's nice to hear different perspectives from across the state. And because our state is so vast, sometimes goes on down south, maybe a little bit different than up north, but really is a really nice insight to what's going on. It invigorates me to know there's people like these ladies that are out there, helping other people that really, it just, I don't know, makes you think everything is going to be okay. So I want to thank you for having this forum. And hopefully the next time we talk, I can tell you what a great job we're doing with our young Republicans. That is certainly going to be top of my priorities to get done to help our organization.
Nice. I love it. I'm going in random order here. Rhonda, what do you want to say as we close out?
Well, I just want to say today is Leap Day, and I started my morning out in Harrisburg, Illinois at the memorial for the Leap Day storm that came through 12 years ago. And I sang a song that I co-wrote called We Are Here. And it really commemorates not only the storm that happened there, the storm that we're in all across this nation. And part of it talks about heroes came from all around. That's the way it is in a small town. But our state, I think, and I liken to a small town, we're up against all odds, but it had to be the hand of God. And we're still here today, and we've got something to say. So I appreciate you ladies, and I appreciate you, Collin, because the course says we are here. We're not going away. We are here, and we're here to stay. We'll stand our ground because we have nothing to fear. We've weathered the storm, and we're still here. So, and that's the way I feel, because we've been at it a long time, and we'll still be at it for times here to come. So I thank you. Thank you for all you do and all you do for our great state. That
was a great way to close us out. Abby, final thoughts from you?
Oh, I get to follow that. I echo everybody. Thank you so much for putting this together. This is such a great group of women, and I feel very honored to be chosen to share my thoughts with all of you. So I just think we all really need to really push that, get out the vote. The primary is 3 weeks from yesterday. I do have a countdown, but I won't open it up on my phone, but I know it's 3 weeks from yesterday. So just, we need to really just reach out to all of our friends and family and just make sure they get out and vote. But I mean, it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you said, I mean, who knows when people are going to watch this episode, but it could be even closer when they watch it. So yeah, it's right around the corner.
If it's not after March 19th, go vote.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it couldn't be more important. So thank you so much for being with us. Lana, what's any final thought from you as we finish off today?
Yes, thank you for inviting me, Collin. I appreciate that. I would like to tell everybody that Illinois Federation of Republican Women has a conference after the primary and on April 5th and 6th. And we have young Republicans who will be speaking there at our conference at a panel discussion. We have got a Capital Conversation group with Tony McCombie and some of the ladies, and they're going to tell us what it's like to be a female in Springfield. And we've also got the Lincoln Series ladies are going to come. Their latest graduates are going to come, and they're going to tell us what it was like and what they learned and how other people can go and participate in the Lincoln Series. And we've got Rhonda Belford, who's going to be coming, and we're going to try to help our young Republicans that are there and our older Republicans better understand that election process, because Collin, you wouldn't believe people still don't understand what's the county convention. What do they do there? What do they do at the state convention? You would not believe how many people don't really understand that process, and we're about educating and trying to help people better understand and get involved if they so desire.
I love that. That's awesome. And you've been a great guest, and you did an awesome job. Thanks for being with us this week. Sharon, you get the final say. I'm kind of scared about that, but close us out. You are muted in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I forgot I muted myself. Yeah, well, first let me say I am not on state time during this whole thing. So I want to make sure make sure that's documented so I don't get in trouble. I just think that we need to really push the positivity side of everything. And we need to really work on more offense. I'm tired of playing defense on everything that happens. It's exhausting. Do I think we have better opportunities than 2 years ago? Yeah, but we have to take advantage of them. So other than that, we want to say good luck to you and Abby. And thank you very much for allowing me. And I cannot wait to have another kind of a side nephew. So
yeah,
extended family nephew. I'm taking ownership.
I like it. I think my family has adopted you, so it's easy. Well, thank you guys so much for being with us. Thank you to our viewers for with us every week. We're almost going on a year now doing this every single week. So we're really grateful for our viewers. To Lane Davis, our producer, who does all the work in the back end. Thank you, Lane. We will be back next week. And as Abby said, it will be even closer to the election. So we're going to have lots of hot discussions on what's happening with that primary election. Make sure you get out there and vote. Go volunteer for one of these candidates. They're putting their lives on the line for you. The least you can do is give them 1 weekend of your time. And let's go and do some big things in 2024. Thank you, and we'll catch you next week.